everybody, Joel with Fortress Survival here, and we are going to show you the tents that I like, the tents I recommend, and we're going to talk a little bit about what I look for in a tent. So my kids are getting ready to come out here and help us do some assembly. You can see Ratchet's going to join us, and so while we wait for them, I'm just going to cover real quick some of the stuff that I look for. So there's three primary things I want in a tent. Number one is I want the tent to be light enough to carry. So the one we're going to set up today, look, I got puppies playing in my tent, as long as they're not going to tear the material. The one we're going to set up today is an 8-man Tipi. So it's going on standard mountaineering measurements. So for the teepees that I use, if you want like room to actually live in it, you double it. So if you have an 8-man is great for 4 people. It can sleep 8, but it's better for 4. The 16 men that I have that I'll set up for you at some point are very comfortable for 6 to 8 guys. And that's your sleeping area, a place to sit, your backpack with your gear, that little spot that you can open your gear up in. And then both of these, which we're not going to do today, we'll probably wait till around the winter time and I'll show you how they work. We have collapsible stoves that set up, they're like box stoves, but they end up being about 1.5 inches wide, and then depending on the size, they're taller and wider this way. And but you can just strap them right to the back of a pack. And the nice thing about this is you can take the poles, and somebody can carry the poles, somebody can carry the tent itself, somebody can carry the stakes. You can kind of spread the load around as you're doing it. So number one is weight, if you have to carry it. Now sometimes you have just a tent in a vehicle or something like that, maybe a little bit of a bigger tent, and so you're not as concerned with weight, but you want to have something you can take with you, and whatever you're taking with you, you want to make sure is not that heavy. So this whole tent is about 10 to 12 pounds for an 8-man, something that sleeps 8 people. Right? So per person, we're just over a pound, about 1.5 pounds per person. And so that works out really, really nicely because you can cross load your other weight to balance everything out. All right. So the one thing is weight. The second thing I look for is durability. Okay, and durability in that category, I also put repairability. So some things can be torn, but they can also be repaired very easily, right? So this is an ultralight material. This is basically a parachute material, and so it can tear, although I've had these for years, and the few little tears I've gotten in them have been very easy to replace and repair. So that's typically not that big a deal. And they set up and they last for a good long while. Now there are some concerns. If you're in a place where it's snowing, you have to relieve the load of the snow off. So you basically go inside and you push the inside of the tent out, and it pushes the snow off so the snow's not bearing too much weight, because the only connection point with what's holding it up is right in the center, and you don't want too much weight pulling there. They are reinforced in those spaces, but that's a concern. So you've got weight, you've got durability / repairability, and then the last thing you have is how easily and quickly can you set it up. Now when we talk durability, let me step back to that one just real quick. I don't like fiberglass pole tents because the fiberglass poles tend to break, and when they break, obviously then you're out a tent. Like it affects the entire setup of the tent. So this uses aluminum straight up poles, and if we had to, we could ditch the aluminum and we could find ourselves pieces of tree, like small pine trees or something like that, depending on where you live, and we could take those and we can cut them at the length we need and use that as a center support pole if we had to. So they're really flexible. The only downside to these is you have to have stakes that attach them to the ground, and once we have it set up, I'll show you inside and stuff like that a little bit more. The stakes that you put in the ground, there are alternatives to putting the stakes in the ground. You can use little rocks and weight the edges of it and things like that if you're in the Rocky Mountains. Is it still running okay? Okay. But in most climates, I've been able to set these up in the Rocky Mountains. I've been able to set them up in Alaska. I've been able to set them up in Missouri. And here in Florida, it's very easy to set up. So, but that is a concern. How easy is it to set up so that if you have something that's really complex to set up, when you're trying to do it fast, when you're trying to do it in the dark, when you're trying to do it in the dark without a light, those things all make it a lot harder to set up something this complex. So the simpler it is to set up and take down, the better, which means also you can do it faster. the more durable the better, and or repairable. And then the last one is you want to make sure you can carry it with you. So I will have a tent, I'll show you guys in a little while, that's a lot heavier but also a lot heavier duty. And but that's one that I would keep in a vehicle or in a trailer, and then we would use if we're vehicle camping and stopping for the night. But it's not, these are what you would consider backpacking tents, backpackable tents. Now I am going to show you also my small tent that I carry when it's just me, and that's a substantially lighter and substantially smaller when it packs up. And then it's just for me, but it's tons of room for me and a dog or two, and plenty of wood for my stove if it's cold, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get to that one and show you. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this video, I'm going to get the kids all set up, and we're going to start a time lapse. We'll set this up in time lapse so you can kind of see it, and then we'll come back to the standard video and we'll show you the setup option. You want to stop it? Tell me when it's going.
It's going.
Okay. All right. So we have Josiah is our cameraman right now. So a couple of things. When we set this up, we realized, look, we do have a tear that we need to fix. So this is lightweight material, so that is pretty easy to fix, but needs to be patched up. I'll show you one that I've done before. Don't step on the tent. So we had a little tear develop down here one time, and that's been stitched up. So that was just done by hand. No, actually that was done with a machine. It was done with a zigzag stitch on the machine. So we've patched that up before. It's very easy to patch up. And now we're gonna open this up to get some airflow because we have a, it's kind of hot and steamy here today. So we just unzip that. Okay, now, Saya, you wanna come in here with me for a second? There we go. Okay, nice and gentle. Okay, so show them these. Okay, so what we can do with these is you can pull them like that and pull them like that, and it holds a little gap in there. Now come over here and show them this one. Now, you can do different things here. So this is a little hard to get a hold of. Can you see that zipper down there? You can take a little piece of 550 cord and put it on there so it's easier to reach. And then we zip, 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 zip all the way up. And then we take, and we can fold this flap over to give ourselves a doorway. All right, so now we can come in and out a little bit, and it's still just a little bit more steamy in here, so show them the grass on the ground. So this is a floorless tent. All right, there's a lot of benefits to a floorless tent. I can come in and out when it's wet and mucky out there, and I don't have to worry about getting a lot of dirt inside on the floor. And then all we have to do is have some similar material to this as little tarps. Try and keep it flat sideways. Some similar material to this so that when we lay those out, we can put our sleeping bags and sleeping mats on them to keep those from being on the wet ground if it is wet. The downside to a floorless tent is the humidity in this grass comes up, and it creates a higher humidity level inside. Okay, a couple of nice things about this tent. This thing right here is a clothesline, and I can use my knot here and I can make this a little tighter like that depending on how I set the tent up. And then if I run a stove, you see this hole right up here? I can run a stove pipe up through that. This is fiberglass, and so even with the high temperature of the stovepipe, it doesn't damage the tent material at all. And then if I hang clothes on here, they will dry with the heat. All right, so let's walk around. These little tie-ins are for, you can get liners for these, and then you tie the liners in. And this little piece of Velcro, this is the loop part of the Velcro. They make little insect nets that you can Velcro in there, and then when you open and close the outside, there's a netting there to keep the mosquitoes from getting in. Okay, follow me around here. Now, if you look closely at the stakes, you want to show them the stakes in the ground? Come over here. You notice right here, we skipped a stake. and then you come around. Oh, look, we skipped another stake. Now you can put every stake in especially if you're going to be experiencing high winds or anything like that. Putting every stake in is beneficial. And then there are extra stakes in the bags because you can take these and step back so they can see what happens to the tent when this happens. So when I pull on these and I stake them out like this, it lifts the edge of the tent out just a little bit, so it's not quite so sharp of an angle. Oops, I dropped my pipe. It's not quite so sharp of an angle inside. I've honestly never used these because I always have enough room. We're almost always doing about half the number of people recommended, so I would do 3 or 4 people in this tent, and there's plenty of room. We don't have to worry about it. But if you're gonna max this tent out, being able to open these out like this, I would always carry some 550 cord as well, so that if I don't want to come down at a sharp angle like this, I can make it more like this and run the 550 cord out about 3 or 4 feet farther and have this a little better angle. All right. The one thing I would modify if I was going to be staying in this overnight is I would put a stake in. You can see if it's zipped up. There's this one missing right here. I would zip that back up and I would put a stake in there so it's not so big a flap when I'm opening the door up. All right, because I like my tent to stay kind of folded back neatly, and if it's a smaller flap, it works a little better for that. So kind of take a step back from it, Saya. Let them see the whole teepee. All right, this whole thing weighs about 12 pounds, including the center mast piece. And the center mast piece can be left behind and replaced with some kind of a thin palm or something else strong like that. For the really small teepees, which you'll see later, you can actually use your hiking sticks. If you hike with sticks that expand out, you can actually use those in place of the poles that come with those, and then you're already using those, so you don't need the extra weight of a pole at that point. All right, so this is what we use. If I was going to be moving with my family and I needed to move quickly, I would divide this up among the BOB packs, and one person would carry the tarp. It would be a little bit more bulky but light. Somebody would probably carry the pole, somebody would carry the tent stakes, and then somebody would carry the stove if it was a situation where we were concerned about how hot the temperatures were or how cold the temperatures were and we needed to keep warm at night. All right, so this is the Kifaru 8-man teepee. I'm pretty sure they still make this one. I don't know if they make the 16-man anymore, but if you go on to Kifaru boards, and that's Kifaru, and I believe their website is kifaru.net. If you go onto the Kifaru boards or the Facebook pages they have, a lot of times you can find guys selling their old equipment because they're trying to buy some of the newer, more updated modern equipment. But this has been a very, very solid teepee. It's served me very well. I've used it many, many times, and we set it up just like this, and you are good to go. One other thing, come over here, Saya. I don't know if you can see here. When you buy these, I don't know if they still come this way, but when we would buy this seam, right, so they've stitched right here. Buy them brand new, have a sealant on them, and you have to seal them. So they send you like a tube of silicone glue, and you just kind of squirt it down, and then you just rub it down. So the first time you set these up, what you typically do is set them up inside out, and then you get inside with a little step stool and you seal all these seams. And when you do it like this, you can see I've done a little extra right there on that piece, and then you come back under here and you pick it up. These don't leak at all anymore, right? So when you first get them, if you don't seal those, they will leak. That was often people's primary complaint. And it's not a complicated process. It's just something you do the first time you set it up. You set it up, let everything kind of stretch and the seams get to where they need to be, and then you seal those up. I've also sealed the entire top portion up there, so it's just a little bit more durable. And then you can also see, if I wasn't going to use the stove, there's a flap that I can cover down, and it will keep there from being an open hole in the top of the teepee. But normally when I use these in the past, I've used them in a place where it's cold and I'm using the stove. And so you get a little drippage if it's raining or if it's snowing a lot, you might get a little drippage down there. But typically nobody's sleeping right in the center. You're sleeping out around the edges. So that becomes not an issue. And now my dogs are deciding to bark. Yeah. All right, so those are our teepees, and that's what we use. There's lots of things. I'd love to see what you guys use. And stop. Let's see here. So make sure, see how that's going up and down when I talk? That means my microphone, see this is my microphone, means it's working. So if you see that not going up and down, it means there's no audio and we need to stop and fix it, okay? Okay, so Joshua is showing us how we can also use our center stake as a weapon should we need to defend ourselves against the zombies. However, it's not designed for that, so I recommend being very careful with that usage. I did want to show you guys a couple extra things. I think I got this at Cabela's. This thing is absolutely amazing. So it's got a little loop you can see there, and then it's got a little hook on this end. So you kind of bring it like this. Actually, let's see. No, other way. There you go, like that. And it rests just like that on the pole. Now it usually does better on the thicker part. It'll work either place. You can bring it down here as well. And you can hang a lantern here. That's really, really nice in the middle of the night. Now, of course, if you're worried about light discipline, then that's something you would want to keep off. But this is a really nice accessory when you're doing just standard camping or if you're moving and it's not a high-risk threat area. So I wanted to show you guys that. Hang on, baby. We're recording, so stop talking. So we have I wanted to show you guys how small this all packs down. So you saw the quick pack up of the tarp itself. Okay, so basically what I do is we pull all the stakes out, we whack them out so there's not dirt between them because the stakes are really durable, but they collect dirt when they're in the ground. So I whack them so I'm not carrying extra weight. They all go inside this bag right here. So all the stakes are now in that bag right there. Then this is the pole bag. So we're gonna break this pole down. So it's got these little buttons, you just push them in and they turn. There we go. That one comes apart. Push it in, turn, push it in, turn, and then that comes apart. They all go in the pole bag. As such, you can cinch that down. And then in this bag, it will all go together in that. If I wanted to split it up, I would leave them like they are and split them up in packs. But I can take this and I just slide it down along the edge. And just press that down in there. You have to kind of work the tent out from under it a little bit. If you don't want to deal with that, you can stick these in first, but they go in just like that. Then I put the stakes, which I make sure these are all cinched up. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. So I cinch that up so they don't fall out inside the bag. They go in there, and I just take this little piece, angle it in gently so it doesn't tear anything. Closes up. That doesn't need to be there anymore. And then, again, I'm a little OCD about this, but that cinches up. And that is the entire teepee right there. So in a decent sized pack, I could put that in the pack and still have plenty of room for my other stuff if I had like a standard ruck. The other thing I wanted to show you, we were using a regular hammer, but one of the things I like to get for these is one of those little plastic mallets. So they have just enough weight in the head to be able to effectively hammer your stakes into the ground. But overall, they're really light. They're less than a half a pound. So they're a really nice little thing to have with you. That's a 16-ounce hammer. So that's a 1-pound hammer. I think the little plastic mallets that I use are the ones specifically sold in the sporting goods section at like Walmart. And they're like 4 ounces. They may be less than a half pound, like a quarter of a pound. Okay, so they're really light. They go really well in the little bags. They work really well for hammering your stakes right into the ground. And then voila, you saw the setup, you saw the tear down. We did this entire thing in about an hour to 45 minutes, and that was me instructing the children on how to do all the things at the same time. So, good deal.